Japan. Voting has ended for Japan's snap elections. The outcome of these elections could chart two very different paths for the land of the rising sun. The country's first female Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, is seeking absolute majority for her economic reforms. Challenging her on the ballot is a centrist coalition that is banking on its welfare state agenda. Now, voting took place amid rising political temperatures and freezing cold. Japan is facing a freezing winter. Severe temperatures are thriving throughout the country. Voter turnout until 6 p.m. local time stood at 26%, and this is lower than the previous year. But turnout during the early voting window paints a contrasting picture, as over 26% of eligible people voted before the election day. Now, the results will clear the state of play, but the exit polls show clear win for Takaichi's LDP. According to NHK exit poll, Takaichi's party would cross the halfway mark on its own, while the coalition will comfortably cross two-thirds majority. Takaichi's campaign pitch was a mix of local politics and geopolitics. She has promised to cut down 8% sales tax on food items and increased public spending to address rising cost of living. Then on the other hand, Takaichi advocates tougher stance on China and wants to increase a defense budget to boost offensive military capabilities. Not just that, she also wants to expand exports of defense equipment, raising questions that Japan, perhaps since World War II, is now deciding to step away from its pacifist agenda. Takaichi's policies have left some people worried. Her aggressive military posture is in stark contrast with Japan's traditional stance, as I just mentioned. Post-World War II, Japan has been an agent of peace, but with Takaichi, it would shift from its policy and take a different position.
Whether the LDP, the ruling party, ends up holding a large number of seats will determine whether the discussion moves toward revising the constitution. I believe how many seats the LDP wins will greatly change Japanese politics, including the issue of constitutional revision.
But to implement the agenda, Takaichi needs not just absolute majority, she needs two-thirds of parliament on her side. This will be 310 seats in the 465-member House. Two-third majority can completely change the political dynamics of Japan. Ishin and Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, they will hold the power to overrule upper house vetoes where ruling coalition lacks majority. Victory in these elections will provide Takaichi an undeniable political clout. It is going to be a long night in Japan and its combative Prime Minister. But the early trends show a positive sign for Sanae Takaichi. Now, what does this mean for people in Japan? I'm now being joined from Tokyo by Benoit Hardy-Chartrand. He is a lecturer and researcher at Temple University, Japan, and professor at United Nations University in Tokyo. Professor, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for making time for us. Now, just before I come to you, I just want to give a little more context to all our viewers. These are Japan's first midwinter polls in 36 years. People are braving the snow to vote, and this was a big gamble for Sanae Takaichi, who called these elections within months of taking office, coming after the collapse of a decade-old coalition and the defeat of her LDP party in both houses last year. Now, this was seen as a big gamble for Takaichi. Exit polls suggest her gamble paid off. Professor Chartrand, how do you see this? Affordability, housing costs, what have been some of the key issues for the people in this election? And do you think these exit polls are accurate to any measure?
Well, right. So first of all, thank you for having me on. Indeed, it was a big gamble for Prime Minister Takaichi. She's only been in office since October of this year. And even though her poll number, her approval rates were quite high, I don't think people expected her to call a snap election, certainly not right away, because her position was secure for at least another couple of about 2-3 years. So when she called the election just a few weeks ago, the whole political system, every candidate and every party had to really scramble to prepare for that election. It was one of the shortest election campaigns we have ever seen in Japanese history. So there were a lot of obstacles for this election. And on top of that, you mentioned it in your question, but the temperature has been really bad over the last few days. is in Japan. I live in Tokyo. It's been something really not accustomed to in Japan, and that certainly has kept a number of voters away from the polls. Now, about the campaign itself, there were a lot of different things that were on the campaign trail, and as part of her message. I think what's on top of people's minds, certainly not the only thing, but on would be the economy. The economy of Japan has been quite a lot of headwinds in front of the Japanese economy. So the message of Takaichi and her coalition has been really to promise the people different measures to try to boost the Japanese economy. And to answer the second part of your questions, it seems that indeed the people of Japan have responded positively. She looks well on her have seen her for the last couple of days. I have no doubt that the exit polls from today are quite accurate. So she's going to likely solidify her position.
Understood. Professor Chartrand, before I come back to you, just want to inform all our viewers that the visuals you're seeing on your screens, these are live visuals coming in from Japan as the counting continues. Exit polls is what I just discussed with Professor Chartrand, who's joined us live here from Tokyo. And as he also explains that the temperatures have played, they've could have been a major dampener for people to actually step out and vote. But till now, people have braved the snow and those temperatures. These are way past zero. Japan is freezing at this point, but people have walked out. And these are live visuals of the counting which is taking place. We should hope to have the decision out soon. Exit polls are suggesting a win for the LDP and the coalition. Professor Chartrand, how long before we finally know the answer to this snap poll? And do you feel Takaichi's popularity helped revive her party's battered image lately?
To get the final result, it's usually the counting happens. It's done very efficiently. So I believe within the next few hours, certainly before tomorrow morning, before Monday morning, we will know the results. Now, regarding her likely victory, this will be indeed quite the turnaround for the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan. The LDP has been in power almost continuously, except for 6 years since the post-war era. However, the last few years have been very difficult for her party. The last Prime Minister Ishiba, he presided over two important setbacks for her party. The LDP lost its majority in both houses. So if she indeed is able to bring back a majority and especially a super majority for the LDP in the lower house, this will be a remarkable turnaround. Something that could not have been foreseen a few months ago. The party had been rocked by a lot of scandals. People had lost trust quite significantly, the party. So a surprising turn of events that we are witnessing in Japanese politics.
Understood. If I could also get an international perspective from you, Professor Chartrand, her emphasis on security, it strained ties with China. There were strong reactions that came from China, borderline violent reactions too, in terms of statements at least. While her promises of tax cuts, they rattled financial markets too. What kind of global effects do you foresee if the exit polls prove to be the final outcome?
Yeah, so it's interesting because she doesn't only face a lot of challenges domestically, she's also facing a lot of international challenges. You mentioned the current crisis with China. This started in early November when she made some comment for Taiwan. That the Chinese government found very offensive, and they have reacted very negatively, and that has caused quite a few consequences, including on the Japanese economy. On top of that, Prime Minister Takaichi has had to deal with the American administration and Trump threats of tariffs on Japan. So this has been another major challenge, but she has seemed to quite a good rapport. Now, in terms of how her election is going to change internationally, well, certainly this is not going to be perceived very positively by China. If it encourages her to pursue a more hard line in terms of foreign policy, in terms of defense, we can expect a few years of difficult relations relationships, of increased tensions with possibly other countries. So it's the consequences on regional stability, regional security might be quite important.
Understood. Professor Chartrand, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. We had to brave through a slightly faulty connection, but mostly we were able to get everything that you mentioned, explaining the dynamics within Japan, the challenges that people have faced, what perhaps worked for Takaichi's favor if the exit polls finally proved to be the final outcome. Couple of hours from now, as you mentioned, we'll know the results. That was Professor Chartrand joining us from Tokyo, giving us the latest. Few hours from now, we'll bring you the results as they'll be announced.